Structure is really just the sequences from the story, and we'll get into that. Think of sequences as a series of scenes, and scenes are made up of beats. And people think beats is, I walked from the refrigerator to the dining room. Well, not really. So let me give you an example. Let's do a scene in a restaurant. A happy man gets spaghetti on him at the restaurant, and he stands from the restaurant table to go to the bathroom. That's a beat. The plate of spaghetti catches his jeans and falls into his lap. That's a beat. He screams angry slurs. That's a beat. Because of this, an overeager waitress who's been afraid of getting fired sprints over to help the man. Beat. But she trips and her face plants into the spaghetti. Beat. She looks toward the camera and her face is red from the sauce as a meatball drops from her eye. Beat. She begins to cry. Beat. Okay, so that's a short story. The man's date had been quiet the entire meal because she's shy. Because she sees this, she leans back into her chair, beat, and laughs while covering her smile. Beat. That's a short story. So what's the scene? Well, everything that took place at the restaurant, but that scene was made up of beats. The beats create the scene because we never leave the restaurant. We stay inside the restaurant. We actually never really leave the room. We don't go from the dining room to the kitchen. We stay right there in that dining room, so that's a scene. If we went from the dining room to a shot of the kitchen or from the dining room to the street, well, then we had changed scenes. But notice how in each beat, there's a change. There's a source of conflict. Each of those beats formed a scene, and scenes form sequences, and the sequences form the acts, and then the acts form your story. Do you see how this works? The real structure in telling a good story isn't to get hung up on, is there 3 acts or 4 acts or 5 acts, even though we're going to discuss those things. It's, are you keeping the audience's attention, whether they're reading your novel or watching your movie? Is the story moving and continually keeping the audience's attention? In each of these beats and in each of these scenes, we see an action, we see a conflict, and then we see a resolution. Not only do we see physical movement, but we see emotional change, and that's important. In each of those beats, we see somebody doing something, we see some conflict, we see an emotional change, we see a resolution, and it propels us to the next. So let's look at one more, and we'll look at one that's a little bit more simple, okay? Beat 1, Tommy takes a drink of whiskey. Beat 2, Tommy slams down the glass after he downs it. Beat 3, Tommy grabs his temples, obviously regretting falling in love with a woman who will never love him back. And beat 4, Tommy screams and throws the glass against the wall. Beat 1, his new girlfriend runs into the room to see what all the commotion is about. Beat 2, she realizes he's thinking of another woman. Beat 3, her eyes swell and she bursts into tears and covers her mouth. Beat 4, she asks him if he still loves her. Beat 5, she doesn't get a response, so she runs crying from the room. This sends us into the next scene. Try to see a sequence as 3 to 5 scenes that work together to propel us forward. Now, in my opinion, as long as the sequences are working and you're keeping the audience's attention, and this is something that I'm echoing from earlier, a 3-act structure, a 4, a 5, it doesn't really matter that much. It's about keeping the audience's attention, but it's also about you creating a way of telling a story that you're comfortable with. You might think sequences, you might think 3-act, 4-act, 5-act, but it's really up to you. You may have an extensive outline, you might have a very short and brief outline. You want to know how people started using the 5-act structure? Because of television shows. They created an act and then had a commercial, another act, a commercial, another act, a commercial. And that's how the 5-act structure came about. It was just to implement the commercials into the story. In my opinion, that's 5 sequences, not 5 acts, no matter what you call it. I mean, you could write your entire story in sequences and use the because method, because this happened, that happened, and then because that happened, that happened. You could do that, and your story's pretty much done. While we're talking about the because method, I do want to tell you about one more technique that I've seen writers take, and this is it. Yes, but, no, and here's what I mean. Did your character find the cake? Yes, but there's no candles. Did your character find the cake? No. And so he has to keep looking for it. Now, conflict must elicit an emotional response. If there's no emotional response, there's really no reason to change. And if there's no change, the story can't push forward. That's why you hear a lot of writing coaches and story construction coaches talk about the importance of conflict and emotional change. Because if you don't have it, you don't really have a story. Now, there's 4 areas of conflict, and we're going to talk about them all. Number 1, intrapersonal. What's going on inside me? Number 2, interpersonal. What's taking place between me and another person? The third piece of conflict is situational. The door jammed when I tried to open it, or I tried to open a sliding glass door and it keeps getting hung up. The gun didn't fire when I tried to shoot the enemy. Number 4, nature. A tornado is ripping through the town. A volcano has erupted, or there's this just torrential rain downpour, which you see a lot in high emotional scenes, like Pride and Prejudice, when Mr. Darcy tells Elizabeth Bennet that he loves her, it's pouring down rain. When Allie gets out of the boat and she says, "Why didn't you write me? I waited on you for 7 years. It's pouring down rain." Writers do that for a reason, the conflict. Think about some of your favorite movies and think about the most intense scenes. What were they? I bet you there's at least one of them where it was pouring down rain outside. Conflict and emotional change is so important that even one writer, his name was Blake Snyder, he's no longer with us, but he wrote a book called Save the Cat. And he would create a note card with the scene title. And it was a 1-sentence scene description. And he would write on that note card that 1 sentence, and then under it, what the conflict was going to be and what the emotional change was going to look like. So let me give you an example, okay? Scene description: John finds out he's stuck at his job. Here's the conflict. John wants to know if he got the raise, but his boss won't tell him. Now here's the emotional change. John starts out hopeful, but he ends up humiliated, or he ends up disappointed. And that goes on the note card. So let's do that again. The note card, 1 sentence. John finds out that he's stuck at his job. So there's your scene description. Under it, in 1 sentence, is the conflict. John wants to know if he got the raise, but his boss won't tell him. And then right under that is a sentence listing the emotional change. John starts out hopeful, but he ends up humiliated or disappointed. And then Blake Snyder creates another note card for the next scene. And his entire story is written out in note cards. It's a great idea. You don't have to do that. It's just an idea. But it worked for Blake Snyder.